Hello and welcome to Roid Rage episode 68. That's all, folks, for now. We'll just start by ripping the Band-Aid off. What do you think, Chap?
Yeah, I think if anybody's listened to this podcast up until now, they've known that we tend to sort of get directly into it, so there's no reason to beat around the bush on this one.
Indeed. This will be, for now at least, the final episode of Roid Rage. We're going to take a little pause and focus on getting ready for launch and see what comes next in terms of content from AstroForge, which there will be some, but we wanted to not just like have Roid Rage fall off a cliff, and we wanted to kind of put a little bow on it.
Yep.
What do you think, Chap? Why are we taking this break?
Yeah, I think it's important to remind people why we started this, right? So I'm going to rewind back to February of 2025. We had our Odin launch upcoming, and it was really sort of a last minute decision between Matt and I to say we should live stream this thing, right? Like we should put it out on YouTube, let people watch along. Uh, it really wasn't a deeper thought than that. It was we should do this. We set up a very basic amount of infrastructure, and I, I don't think anybody could have guessed the response that we were going to get. And the response was quite honestly a little overwhelming. Like so many people came out just in like drastic support of us, both I think as the mission and also the way that we presented the mission to the world. And so I think immediately after that, like we then had this really hard decision of like, man, Odin didn't go the direction that we necessarily wanted to go. Not to say that it was a failure. Like there were a lot of really hard lessons learned. We spent a bunch of time writing about that. But we had this really at that moment, which was like this critical decision to say, we just did this thing in the open. Do we continue to talk about how we recover from this, mission and take that into the next one? Do we do that in public? And the answer was like, let's go do that. Right. And so I think we took a lesson from, a lot of software startups and just said, the thing to do is just start shipping fast. And so very quickly after that, I think it was me and Matt at first, and we brought in a couple other folks, and it was like very low budget production. Like Rachel saved us more times than not, and then you joined us and brought a lot more professionalism to sort of how we run this, but like a lot compared to like where we were starting with, and like a lot of small numbers, but we get it. But anyways, yeah, we just kept shipping it, right? And the idea was to say, like, let's continue to talk about who we are as a company, what we're building, why this is important, why this matters out and open. And so we've done 68 versions of that, like shipping it over the past year. We've learned a lot about A, what it takes to make a podcast, which I have a newfound appreciation for anybody who does this for a living. And B, sort of like how intentional you have to be in talking and like coming up with a narrative that you want everybody to have to latch onto. As much as I would just love to like sit here and shoot the shit every week, like that's not exactly what people are tuning in for, and that's also not what we're supposed to do. And so I think now where we are, where we've built the next spacecraft, right? So like Deep Space 2 is like sitting over there.
So crazy.
It's wild. Like it's on our shop floor, and we're now doing a bunch of testing. And so like we've sort of completed this chapter, and I think what we want to do is take a pause to say, hey, we shipped a lot of things. We learned a lot about how to talk in public and be very open about this in a way that's a little bit of an aberration from what the general industry does. What does the next chapter of this communication look like? And so I think while we're in this natural moment where we prepare for next launch, we're going to use the launch as sort of like this next inflection point, and we really use that to say, great, what does media look like about Deep Space 2, about the future builds that we have going on? We still want to maintain a couple principles here of talking out in the open, building out in the open, like really letting people sort of, you know, ride shotgun as much as we possibly can and legally can.
Freaking ITAR, man.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. But I think it takes a little bit of like we need to pause, reflect on this, like incorporate a lot of those lessons, and really start to sort of move forward those principles in a couple different form factors there.
Yeah. I mean, that all is exactly what we have been sort of mulling over
Yep.
lately. Uh, and to a certain extent, like you said, Deep Space Two is built. It's
Yeah.
sitting right
Yeah.
over there. So we have told the story of getting back to having a spacecraft and ready to launch.
And I just don't think anybody cares about like, hey, like we learned this little minute lesson about this particular type of epoxy or this particular, screw. Like we're down into such the nitty gritty of the spacecraft that like talking about the spacecraft doesn't really matter right now until we get through some of the tests, which will have a bunch of stuff coming up over the next couple months, and then also once we get to launch. So it just felt like the right time to say, cool. Let's take a step back and think about what the next chapter of this narrative looks like.
Yeah, and like you said, to be clear, we're still going to exercise our methodology of radical transparency and
Yep.
building out in the open and talking about what we're building while we build it and where our progress is. It's going to take some different forms for
Yep.
now, and we'll see what happens after Deep Space Two launches. Because I mean, I for one think, some sort of like Deep Space update sort of podcast where we talk about where Deep Space Two is and what phase of the mission it's in, that sort of thing could be really
Yep.
interesting and compelling too.
Yeah.
So, we might return, but definitely just wanted to let our faithful audience know sort of where our heads are at and what
Yeah.
we're thinking. Because believe it or not, I've seen a non-zero number of posts on Twitter and elsewhere or like even in the YouTube comments, like, "Hey, why was there no Roid Rage last week?" Or when's the next Roid Rage? Like people, I was genuinely surprised. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow,
Yeah.
people,
You and me both. You and me both.
it's like people tune into this.
But
So
and like I think to build on that, on top of that, like part of the reason that we didn't want to just sort of like hit pause, go cold turkey, and then come back is like, you know, one of the principles is to be honest about where we are as a company. And I think this in and of itself saying like, hey, Roid Rage up until this moment in its incarnation has been really helpful for us and for our audience. And we want to just be clear with you, like, there's going to be more. We're just going to take a pause from like this current form of it and come back with a slightly different form factor.
yeah, absolutely. Plus, it's just like as we get closer and closer to
Yeah.
launch, there's so much to be done. And like you were alluding to earlier, newfound respect for people who podcast full time. Takes a
Yeah.
lot of work.
Yeah. A lot of things I know I'm not going to be when I grow up, like neurosurgeon and full-time podcaster, now top of the list.
Never say never.
Feel pretty good about that.
So yeah, this doesn't mean less content from AstroForge. To be 100% clear and not
Yep.
belabor the point though, but we'll just probably be coming in different forms. We've got some
Yeah.
ideas kicking around, and we'll see what comes next.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so I wanted to end on a little bit of levity for this short episode. Chap, do you have a favorite moment from Roid Rage?
Oh,
It can also be favorite moments. Like if you can't pick just one, because
Yeah.
favorites are hard, man.
Yeah. While I think about this, I'm going to ask Rachel in the background to think about hers as well.
have
Okay,
Rachel
Rachel,
has an
go for
answer.
it then. Lead us off.
Right. I'll keep this short and sweet, but my favorite memory of Roid Rage was when Matt doxed
That's
multiple
exactly.
team members and fully just posted their phone numbers audibly in these recordings. And my favorite follow-up to that is that people actually did reach out
They
to
did.
the
Yep.
people whose contact information was compromised.
That's how the person knew that they were doxxed, is because there was people reaching out.
Yeah.
Right. So sorry about that, Chin and Robin. But yeah, pretty good moment there.
Yeah, that is a solid. That's a solid answer.
Legitimately, that was my answer as well. Is when unnamed parties were doxxed by Matt on air. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. So Rachel, thank you for that very strong opening. I think the one that stands out to me the most is we did a podcast with one of our advisors, Dr. Christina Thomas. We had Al from LBTO. And I believe that they were our first external guests on the podcast. I could be off there, but they were like, we haven't had many external guests. And I personally had gotten very used to the sort of the dynamic that, me, Matt, you, Robin, like some conglomeration of us have. And it was the first time where you got to see AstroForge as this platform for other people who like are deep nerds about asteroids and asteroid adjacent things, like really come and build on top of it. And like that was a really cool moment where you could just start to ask a very basic question, and 20 minutes later you're like, whoa, we're so deep into this, and it's great. And so I think like that was a real clear sort of follow up on the why we started this, because we saw such a really strong reception from our sort of like space nerds in general, and then sort of people who are very interested in Astroforge. And that this was like a perfect sort of point on, oh yeah, there's a lot of like people who are really fascinated by deep space, and we could be a platform for them to come and sort of like share their information and their knowledge and their love of deep space and asteroids.
Look at you with your like real thoughtful answer.
I mean, also to be clear, I would have also used the doxing one, and so then Rachel really like I really shot myself in the foot by giving her first shot. So then I had to actually spend some thought. And
Yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. Cool. Well, I think that's about it. Last point of discussion is, what is your favorite thing about how we communicate our progress at this company? For me, it's just the incredible transparency. You don't get that from any other company. I kind of think of early SpaceX when they would just like show the explosion. I feel like they
Mm.
kind of
yeah,
shy away from that now a little bit, but yeah, I just appreciate that we're willing and able to just sort of say it like it is and post stuff. So I don't know if you had a follow on to that, or an agreement, or a dissent.
yeah. I mean, I think a lot of what I say is basically a yes and to that. Like the internet is great for a lot of things. Nuance is not one of them. Um, and I think especially coming from the event that just happened to us, which was like we could celebrate a lot of really great things about Odin, and also Odin didn't work out. Like we had to say we were wrong about things. Like what I appreciate about this podcast and the way that we talk about it is we've just been able to carry out that like we got this wrong, right? In a I would like to say a fairly low ego way, although that is not uniformly distributed across all of our participant members, and so I'll leave that there. But no, I think it's important for companies, especially who are tackling really hard problems like us, and this could extend to we're not the only hard tech company out there, but like I think it's really important to have a public forum in which companies like ours can say, "Yo, we got this wrong, and here's what we learned from it, and here's how we're building up from it," because there's sorry, like for hard problems like small modular reactors or any like orbital data centers, like you're going to get a bunch of stuff wrong. And so I think being able to share those lessons in public and sort of build this momentum towards having an actual deep space industry is really important. And that's what I think this has been a really great V1 vessel for to do.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I mean, I forget if it's a Steve Jobs quote or it's just a behavior attributed to him. Strong opinions held loosely. Like,
Yeah, that is a thing that is said in almost. I feel like that's been part of every VC conversation I've ever had. I have no idea who. Like, so if someone can properly attribute that, I'm happy to give it to Steve Jobs right now. But like, we are a great example of that.
absolutely. All right. Well, if you have suggestions for some notional V2 version of
Yeah.
Roid Rage, or whatever we end up calling it, if not Roid Rage, put it in the comments. If you know the origin of the strong opinions held loosely thing, put it in the comments.
Yes.
And mailbag at astroforge.com will remain open. Feel free to send us questions. You never know, you might just get an email response, or maybe Matt will quote tweet it, or who
Sure.
knows. But
And
mailbag
yeah.
remains open.
And I would say, like, on everything from like keep the podcast the same to like do short form musicals about engineering updates.
Oh,
Like,
God.
which like, look, you don't want to hear me sing, but like, I think it would actually be really helpful to get some feedback on what is the type of content that you feel like we're missing here. So like, as we're in this sort of like going back to the drawing board, we are open to suggestion.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, that will be it for this one. And we will see you at some point in the future.